OPM application of Michael Cipheron and Jack. Sorry, I got it backwards.
A lot of people do that.
Ray Jack's role within that organization as well. Rodney?
Yes, for the purposes of introduction, I just wanted to take this opportunity to introduce Ray Jack, who is right behind me to my right. Mr. Jack is the retired DPW director from Falmouth, where he was responsible for overseeing wastewater management system. He is essentially going to bridge the gap between now and whenever we hire a new town engineer. I was able to coax Ray out of retirement on a temporary basis for the sole purpose of bridging this gap, and he comes highly qualified and highly recommended, and I've known Ray since his days in Falmouth, and I have the utmost respect for his knowledge, his skills, and his abilities, and his work experience and his infinite wisdom. So he will be working with the Sewer Commission as well as my office, and he will also be the person coordinating between GHD, who, again, as you approved last meeting, will be responsible for the plant, and EP, who will be responsible for the collection system, and also Weston and Sampson, who will be responsible for the OPM. Weston and Sampson is not going to be here today, but will be here at a future meeting on an as-needed basis. At this particular time, I thought it was appropriate for Mr. Jack to get his feet on the ground as far as the different contracts and all of the players involved. And obviously, we are on a very tight schedule in the upcoming weeks, which makes it extremely critical in order for this timeline to be satisfied with the various roles that each one of us play. So that's my brief introduction.
All right, we have another gentleman who is not with us today, Michael Cipheron from Weston and Sampson, who has an immense amount of qualifications, having been the CEO of a 700-person engineering firm for 10 or 15 years.
He's been around a long time. Right. And Ray is very familiar with him. Actually, Ray's familiar with everybody that's involved in this project. And I don't know if you want to say anything. I'm going to defer to Ray.
All right. But let me finish making a statement that these gentlemen are all part of an action committee, or what you want to call it, but it's the Mashpee Water. What's the best word to use around me? Not water works, but
Yeah, wastewater action team.
Wastewater action team that will be the line organization to implement all of the decisions that are necessary to produce a production of a complicated water processing sewer system, both in processing water and collection. So they are the line organization making all of the physical decisions. We, as the Sewer Commission, will continue to support that line organization as a staff organization. It is not our job to reinvent the wheel. It's our job to help them make the wheels move. So that's what our focus will be in the future. If you would like to say something, Ray, be my guest, or be our guest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Mr. Collins indicated, my name is Ray Jack, and I did retire from Falmouth about 2 years ago. Just prior to my retirement, I was managing over $100 million in contracts, built a large-scale surface water treatment plant for water, large-scale sewer collection system for the wastewater because we already had a treatment plant, and other smaller contracts for wastewater discharge and lift stations, things of that nature. I am intimately familiar with all the players involved. I've worked with them for many years. To Mashpee's credit, you have good firms working for you, and their goal is as simple as mine is. You're headed on a journey, and I want to make that journey as pleasant as possible. I know it's always costly, but I am familiar with how to manage contracts of this type. So the goal will try to be to make it as pleasant as possible in the street, on the street with the residents. And I'll be working closely with all of you. So I'll be able to give you my contact information if you have any questions and whatever. But I will be meeting with you on a regular basis. It's important to me to know and fully understand what exactly the expectations are of the town throughout this contract. So that'll be my goal. My goal and my role will serve as a facilitator and to try to enhance communications amongst all the parties involved. So that's the firms, the residents, the selectmen, the board of commissioners here, and anyone else that is a party to this. Because one thing I am well known for is communication. I'm very transparent, I'm very open, and I want everyone to be fully aware of what's going to happen and when. Okay, so anytime that I can help, please let me know. I'm more than willing to take on whatever it is that you need. Okay?
I just have a question for you. First of all, I'd like to say welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And the other thing that I'd like to ask you a question is, with your vast amount of experience, you become familiar with what's going on, what do you see as the main priority for you right now, right this minute?
The main priority is to get those contracts rolling, all right? It's imperative, and especially given the time of year. I know it's summertime right now, everybody's thinking sunshine and no rain. I'm thinking wintertime and snow. And you're going to be building a treatment plant with a lot of concrete. You're going to be doing a lot of work out in the street and building 3 lift stations, a lot of excavation in the street for which are normally not conducive to winter-type weather. So the goal would be to try to get these things moving now. There's still a good construction season ahead of us, and want to try to take advantage of that. One of the worst things that a contract like this can do is to start too late in the year. I can guarantee you it usually always causes problems when that happens. So that's the number one priority that I have right now, is to make sure that everyone is on the same page and that we move it forward together, okay, as opposed to independently.
Thank you.
Ray, first, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Second, will you be having scheduled office hours here?
Every day. I will be here. The office is right across the hall in the planning office. Right now, yesterday was my first day, okay? So I'm still on the curve, if you will, reviewing all the contracts and what have you, but that shouldn't take me too long. I mean, it's very familiar to me, so that shouldn't be too bad. And all the decisions have been made with respect to the contracts in the sewer, which that's a good thing. And from my knowledge thus far of where we're heading on this, everything seems to be correct to date, which is also a good thing. So I don't see any major issues on the engineering side or even the construction side that we won't be able to overcome. But I'll be here if you need me, and if I'll give you my contact information, for any other time. All right?
Jack, before you leave today, would you write down your personal email and personal phone?
Yes.
We'll also get the town number and name when
Yes.
you're actually physically on board.
Will do.
Any other questions?
Not at this time.
We're good.
Thank you.
And for what it's worth, it didn't take too much coaxing me out. My wife had always said that my biggest problem when working was that I love a challenge. And so for 2 years, there hasn't been a big one. And So I actually welcomed it, and I've always worked closely with Mashpee as a neighbor and as a community, professionally and personally, and I've always enjoyed that relationship. So for me, it's a pleasure to be here. Okay?
Ray, just one quick question.
Sure.
I'm just curious, what was your formal education?
I'm a certified public works manager through Rutgers University. I also have classes in environmental science. I teach, and I've taught for over 30 years. So I've taught for environmental courses at the college level, specifically relating to water. I also teach and currently do state licensed water operators. I teach basic and advanced water and wastewater technology. So I'm intimately familiar with treatment processes and everything associated thereof. I am also a state licensed operator myself on public systems. So I've been director in Falmouth for 25 years. When I retired, I was also a director of public works in New Jersey prior to coming here. And when it comes to contamination and issues related to water and wastewater, that is an eye-opening experience. New Jersey is a good training ground, okay? So that's one of the reasons why I'm familiar. And I've also been heavily involved at the state level on a number of issues. I served on the Water Resources Commission for a number of years. They issued a statewide permit for water wells and what have you. I've served on the first state climate change committee. And I have a governor's appointment now for serving on the base committee. I serve on the Citizens Action Committee as well as the Joint Base Cape Cod MC3 committee, which is the one that handles the lower 5,000 acres, and I'm on the committee for the upper 15,000 acres that's looking at the machine gun range. I've dealt with the contamination issues with the base for many years, and I'm pleased to see where they are today. So I guess my goal all there was always that it's easy to sit back and complain about regulatory boards and regulations, but if you don't actively try to be proactive with that and be part of it, then it's difficult to complain about it. So I always saw my role as trying to make changes for things to be better. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody else? Anything else? Unless we have something else or more details we wanted to discuss with the town manager or Ray, I'd like to proceed to review and discuss things with a potential sewer commissioners.
That's fine with me.
Yeah. Phyllis? You want to take a minute and tell us why you want to be on the sewer commission?
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the commission. I'm Phyllis Sprout, and I've lived in Mashpee since about 1973. I've seen a lot of different changes over the years, obviously. I've built 2 homes, and seen the water quality in the bays, especially Waquoit Bay, and the collapse of the shell fishing industry there. And it was dramatic. It took only 1 year. So that reinforced how important it is to control what's going in the water. And we haven't been doing a very good job of it. Title V systems are certainly better than the old septic systems, and that's great. But now it's time to work with what the town has said. The town wants to have a sewer system. They want clean waters, and I would like to be a part of that solution and support the engineers and the various parts of the project, because it isn't just digging up the roads and putting in pipes. Once the system is running, there's a lot to keep it running. We have to watch the energy, the discharges. It's all a big, not so much a big puzzle, but it's a very intricate process that we're embarking on, and I'd like to help out with that.
Anybody have any questions for Phyllis?
Yes, I do. Since we don't have our name tags, I'm Meredith Harris.
Hi, Meredith, yes.
I have a couple of questions for you. I understand that you'd like to be a member of the sewer commission because you'd like to help in the process. Are you aware of the clean water plan that's been published on the website since 2015?
I did read the pamphlet that you had that was updated, I believe, in 2021. As far as the details, no, because one of the we have a well. We've always had a well. Because of the farm, it's been important that we control the water that we use, because we use chemicals in drip irrigation that can react with various things that are added to town water. So we've always kept a well. So I must say that I'm not as aware of what's going on.
If we, eventually, we're going to have to sewer the whole town, and do you have an opinion at all about priorities or areas of priorities for sewering the town?
I would imagine you'd want to identify the areas where you've got the greatest amount of leaching going in to the bays and rivers and prioritize those. As far as density, sometimes the smaller places that have the older sewer systems are probably more critical. They're adding more effluent into the watershed because their systems are old and not as well developed as we're obviously going to do with the sewer.
I don't know if you might be aware, but there are some new regulations that have been put forward by DEP that would be looking for some major changes, and it may or may not reflect on what our plans have been that have already been published. And would you be prepared to assist the whole team in helping to reformat or reformulate a plan if in fact it'll be a very different issue with DEP now promulgating new regulations?
Well, most of the time when DEP publishes new regulations, and we see it just with chemical uses on the farm, and we have to go through licensing procedures and update, do classes, and it's always more strict. It's never more lenient. So yes, it's to be expected.
So you've danced to a number of different tunes as they've come up.
Yes.
Thank you.
I just have one. We normally meet on Thursday afternoons. Is that a problem for you?
No.
I have another question. This has nothing to do with clean water.
Okay.
It sounds as if you've had a lot of experience as you had to change and deal with regulations and deal with, as you've worked with your farm. This huge project is going to require teamwork, it's going to require problem solving. Do you have any thoughts about how you will be working with a team and working toward problem solving?
I like to take a large picture and take an overview and then kind of look at the parts that don't work, but in this case, the DPW will be your Department of Environmental Protection, will be giving us some challenges, and I like working on challenges. I really do. Sometimes, again, my biggest experience is on the farm, and when I can't find a tool, I look for the right one, and if I can't find one that does the job, I invent one. I mean, that's what you have to do.
What do you see as being the biggest obstacle to problem solving and teamwork?
Well, in most places, it's personalities. But that usually breaks down to communication and being able to know the language, because this whole commission deals with the language and acronyms, and you have to come up to date, and always make sure that you're clear on what you're talking about and who's got responsibility for what part of the job and how they interact, and all of that works together. And that's the challenge, is to make the whole process work together with the various personalities and the regulations.
Thank you.
You have any other questions for us?
Not really. This is, I'm finding this very exciting just to contemplate doing this. I haven't worked on a town board for over 10 years, and now that we're retired to the farm, I can spend more time doing things that are important for the town. Just want to give back.
Great, thank you.
I think.
Can I just ask you just a second, Phyllis, would you be prepared to give us, you gave us a bit of a statement about yourself. Could you give us a more detailed one about what your experiences and your interests are? Not now, I mean in writing.
Yeah.
You don't have to run through it all now, but that would be helpful if you don't mind.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next candidate doesn't need any introduction, I don't believe. I think everybody here knows Tom. One thing that needs saying, there's actually two things that need saying. The first one is, we wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for Tom. He, for many years, formatted and developed and pushed and pulled and did everything he could to get this town to address the problem of stopping the pollution through septic waste. He not only got a plan built, he got state money to get the engineering done, to get a plan written, get the plan approved, both at the state level and eventually, with Andy's help, it got approved at the town meeting. And that's why we have a process now where we're creating both a line and staff management to implement a $54 million initial plan, which may be double or triple over the next 10 years. Now, that's where we are going to be working. We're going to be working on where do they go next, or, you know, what department needs what help or background information searched for, or commits that would be required and all of that. Tom knows most of that work, and he could be very advantageous to us. However, in subject 2, regarding Tom, we had a little bit of a problem where he was the head of everything for so long that no one in the town had any responsibility or did anything that was significant for this subject. So he had to manage it, both as a manager and as a futurist and everything. And he had a little bit of a struggle letting go of the management of the day-to-day operation. So that is not what we're interviewing for here. We are interviewing for people that are willing to do staff work to support the line management that is going to be doing the construction. We are not going to change their direction. We're not going to invent new directions. We're not going to, let's say, try and make a new path. What we're going to try and do is follow the path that Tom helped build to begin with through to completion. So keeping that in mind, Tom, are you still interested in becoming a member of the Sewer Commission?
Yeah, that's why I'm here.
Can you come up front and tell us why you're here in 100 words or less? That's going to be a struggle, I know, but you can do it.
Actually, you just said most of the words, but I'm here because the guy behind me asked me to be here. And now that certain personnel issues have been taken care of that caused a lot of disruption in the commission, I'm willing to get back on board. As you know, I actually created the commission, and before that I was on the town's Water Quality Advisory Committee, so I've been involved with water in Mashpee for more than 40 years. Currently the chairman of the Mashpee Water District Commission on my 5th or 6th term, I don't remember. And I know all the parties. I've known Ray for a long time. Mike from Weston and Sampson, actually first met him in 1988 when Weston and Sampson did an actual draft wastewater plan for the town at the behest of the state when we were looking at doing a septic treatment facility on the base. So Mike is a longtime partner, and Obviously, I'm very familiar with the people at GHD, and obviously very familiar with the plan, having put it together with our commissioners. I'm pretty sure it can add to the dialogue here at the commission and maybe bring some history to a lot of discussions where people haven't been on that long, and so I think is needed as sort of a solid background as to why the plan is the way the plan is. So I'll stop there because you said
Yeah.
not too many words.
Do you have any questions for Tom, Meredith?
The general one about what do you feel you bring, and how do you feel that you'll be working with this team on the problem solving? I mean, what do you feel is your role, and how do you do problem solving with a team of people?
Well, my goal is to complete the plan that was approved, and that's a long-term struggle. We're going to have to get the money from town meeting and all the rest. I think of myself in terms of the group as, like I said, as sort of a memory bank that most of you don't have, and I'm willing to put in place. Team's a team. I work on a lot of teams. So.
I believe that you contributed also to the local comprehensive plan and did a lot of the history about the formation of the kettle ponds and the glacier.
Oh, yeah.
It was wonderful reading, and I just want to thank you for that.
You're talking about the current
The
LCP, yeah.
1998 old plan, but
Well,
but
it's
the
the current
history-
plan because it was adopted by town meeting. Until the new one is adopted, it is still the current plan.
Exactly.
Yeah, and yeah, I did the writing on most of the chapters. I had an assistant planner who was also a AICP, and he did some of the chapters. And I also had a secretary who was very brilliant, who had a master's in public administration, just like the current planner. So we had a good team. We had 4 different consultants that worked with us on that, and did a lot of public meetings. I mean, when I first came to Mashpee, people asked me what I was going to do as town planner, and my immediate response was listen. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to listen to the people in town because they're the ones that have to vote at town meeting, and they're the ones that are going to have to deal with the costs and the rest. So you weren't here, but we went through a lot of struggle with some of the neighbors at next to the treatment plant. And I want to make sure that they get the buffers and all the promises that I made back then are taken care of in terms of protecting the neighborhood regarding the treatment plant impacts or anything. So
Well, thank you for
I
your
have
contribution.
a vested interest.
Yes, you are. Yes, and thank you.
Alfred?
Tom, I got to admit, when I saw your name on this, I thought somebody made a clerical error. I was shocked that you had applied. My question is really this. Well, I can put it in my own context. When I was an IFTRA officer, a line officer, I had control of everything, and what I said went. I left the service, and I was on a staff position, and I quickly learned that there's a big difference between being on staff and being on a line position. As you said, this is a staff position. How do you feel about being in a staff position rather than the position that you previously had?
Well, I mean, all the commissioners are in the same position. You have a chair, it gets elected by the commissioners and responsible for running the meeting and setting agendas and all the rest, but, everybody on the commission has the same role, so it's not staff versus line, it's commissioners. And, we're all here to talk about what needs to be done and figure out how to get it done. And so, I mean, it's, having been chairman, it was mostly because every year Joe nominated me because he didn't want to be chairman. And I can say that for many years prior to that. Nobody wanted to do the work, so that's why I was chairman for 32 out of the 33 years I was on the commission, because it's, it's not, it's sort of like the point person that has to take all the beatings and also, try to keep the little rabbits in the pens I don't have any problem with change, you know. I mean, I'm not going to be the chairman unless somebody wants to push me into that, but I've had enough years of that. I just like to have my say to try to make sure we don't go off the rails again. 'Cause I think the last year's been pretty messy, and I'd like to get it back to, like I say, on track to get the job done.
Thank you.
Supposedly, they're going to name the treatment plant after me, so I got to make sure they build the damn thing before.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
I think we don't have anything else to go on the agenda today other than the review of our candidates. And we're going to do that in executive session after the room has been cleared. So if anybody else has anything in today's meeting or they want to cover in today's meeting, let's have it before we go into executive session.
None that I
I
can think of.
don't think that was posted, and I'm not so sure you can do that.
Fine, let's go on to new business. Would somebody make a motion that we go into executive session? Yeah,
I so
although
moved.
it was not on the agenda.
I second the motion.
Made and seconded. Any discussion?
No.
I'm not sure that you can go into executive session. I don't believe you can because of the public body. I can.
Because of the what?
This is not an individual that would be appointed through my office
Right.
or anything like that. It's a member to a public body, so I don't believe an executive session is in order. I think you have to discuss it publicly. But if you want to just take a brief recess, I can try to confirm that I'm correct with town council.
Okay. This is a personnel discussion, that's the problem.
Yeah, I completely understand, Mr. Chair or Acting Chair. I just don't think it's within the parameters of the open meeting law based on them becoming potential members here. But let me just make sure I'm 100% correct.
Okay, great. Take a break.
Am I staying live or what?
If we go into executive session, the answer to that is no.
We're live still, folks, so.
Yeah. We're going to get a review on whether this is an appropriate action or not. Rodney will let us know quickly.
Joe, just remember, if you go into executive session, you need time to shut down the live feed and wait for that light to go off.
Okay,
While that light's on, you're live,
okay,
okay?
got it.
Just so there's no
Right.
problem.
I just don't think it's appropriate to discuss personnel issues in a public way.
Disaster, I mean, there was 5 commissions recently. Like David Davidson, I mean, that was my, probably that's really nice, you know, at the commission. He resigned, I don't know all the circumstances, but for a reason.
He withdrew as well. Rodney was pushing. We were supposed to, he was getting from them, and I don't know, and the idea of reapplying.
His original idea was let's beat the crowd, and probably,
I'm a I was a phys- I was a physical therapy professor. I practiced long history, 40 years as a physical therapist, and I had with pediatrics and with adults, older adults, mental adults, and then I taught, and headed up
2035 or
physical therapy
something.
department at Cipheron College. Yeah, I'm, you know, I didn't start doing triathlon racing.
Really?
And so I did do racing.
Oh, how'd you do?
And so here to talk about it.
True, so you finished it,
That's
obviously.
like the where you left off.
Did you make good time?
No, it was on.
And you know the players, like when
That's okay.
you had
Yes,
GHC
okay.
doing your, you were playing for years from there. You know, Jeff and the gang. So, yeah. Awesome.
We were, they were stern.
Oh, yeah, same here. In fact, we picked them in 1999. And it was a three-member elected sewer commission, and I was actually going to vote against them. I went with SCA, I don't know whatever happened to SCA, but I knew them from the water system project, and, but the other two guys voted for them, and, so they've been great over the years. So they actually, you know, bid on the planning project in 1999. $360,000 or something, and then the rest went to Brian House. They stuck with that contract all the way through 2015. They didn't, you know, jack things up or anything, so I mean, they've been with us, and they've earned their place with us. I don't know who this other firm is that somehow got dragged in here to do the same thing they had already done with collection system design. That's one thing I don't know about.
That's potentially one unfortunate thing that was commissioners, the decisions. So, but I agree, there's things. Relationships and stuff like that.
It's also a totally different food plan that we're doing. I'm not that
I just want to advise the commission, I'm correct, you can't go into executive session for this purpose.
Is it the concern about not discussing personnel issues? I mean, we should be discussing personnel issues in
You can
public?
discuss anything publicly
Anything?
that was on the agenda. You just can't discuss it in executive session because the person that would be considered is a member or would be a potential member to a public body. I mean, basically, you are reviewing candidates who would be brought before the select board for consideration and subsequent appointment. By policy of the board, you review the candidates for your commission and make a recommendation, and then it goes to the select board. Neither the sewer commission or the select board can go into executive session to appoint a sewer commissioner. So that's the way the law is. I didn't write the law.
Okay. Is it possible then to convene a different meeting and have an executive session about personnel? No.
You cannot have an executive session relative to
Hear
a
you.
potential candidate for the sewer commission.
Okay. Thank you. What would you like to do, Mr. Chair?
Well, it's a quandary.
It is.
We have yet to
I think I know
interview-
what to do.
We haven't interviewed Chad Smith yet.
Yeah,
Should we,
well, I'd like,
Postpone
I was
any
going to cover
decision?
that in an executive session, but we can't do that. The subject of Chad Smith is on the table. Rodney?
I did that once.
Yes.
We have someone coming in for you, I believe. On the subject of Chad Smith, he's had historical relationships on a number of committees in the town. I'm not sure if we could take that as a background qualification, or we should reschedule him at a future date. Can I have any opinions?
My preference would be that we reschedule him for a different date.
I agree.
Reschedule, that's it, we'll reschedule. On next week's schedule, would you please schedule Chad Smith? Ernie Virgilio is out, and Malone, who was gonna reapply, is out. She's decided not to reapply. And who was the other one?
I think that's all.
That's it. Phyllis
Vinny or something?
and Tom.
I think you have, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Chair, you have 4 vacancies and
Right.
3 candidates. Or,
Right.
All right.
Right. Yes, Tom, Phyllis, and Chad. So we'll leave Chad for next week. But on Phyllis, would we like to have some discussion?
did you say 5? I think it's 4, correct?
There were 4 openings.
Yes, 4 vacancies and 3
3
candidates.
candidates.
Yep.
And you confirmed?
And there were 4. There was one that obviously withdrew.
Yeah, Malone.
Well, also Ernie withdrew.
And then Ernie. Okay. I'd like to discuss, bring up for a vote, Phyllis Sprout.
Would we want to wait until we've seen all the candidates before we do a voting on them?
They're not interdependent on each other.
I realize
Why
that.
should we do that? I'd consider it, but you got a reason for doing it that way?
I just think you have a fuller picture of everybody when you've seen everybody.
I'd prefer to just march through them and get them taken care of. All right, let me make it a vote.
I'm not opposed to discussing now. I just thought I'd raise it as an issue or as a question.
I would like to answer the question. I don't think we should wait.
Gotcha.
I think we should proceed. Alfred? Should we proceed?
I would prefer that we not proceed until we hear from Chad. Basically, for what you said, I mean, the person told us up front that he had a family obligation and could not be here. He was upfront about that. I think we ought to interview him next week, and having interviewed the 3 and see what the 3 different people bring to the table, we can make our decision.
So I had initiated a motion to vote on Phyllis. Any further discussion?
No discussion, no further discussion. I move that we vote.
We have a second.
Oh, second.
Excuse me, did you just say you want to vote on Phyllis right now?
No, I'm saying, don't we have on the table whether we're going to?
Yes.
And if there's a motion on the table and then we vote, we can vote yes or no to proceed with voting on the
Yes.
candidate.
Okay.
That's what I was saying.
So I have made the motion that we proceed to vote on Phyllis. I need to hear a second.
Second.
You got your second?
Okay. Any further discussion on Phyllis? You've said you don't want to vote. You've said you don't want to vote. So I'll call the vote. Those in favor of not voting on Phyllis today?
I'm in favor of not voting on Phyllis right now.
I agree.
2 to 1, 2 to 1. All right, same motion. Make a motion that we invite Tom Padala to join the commission. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any
Discussion?
discussion?
I feel the same way, that we should look at all three candidates before we come to a final conclusion.
I agree.
I'll take a vote then. Those in favor of inviting Tom to join the commission today, say aye. Those opposed,
Nay.
Opposed?
2. The nays have it.
If I could just make a request, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
The Select Board meets June 27th.
Right.
Obviously, that is a week from Monday. So if you could, without any inconvenience to the members, if you could vote one way or the other next Thursday on the members that are under consideration, then at least I can go into the Select Board meeting knowing which way you've recommended. So, obviously,
understood.
we can put that on the agenda. As a matter of fact, we'll have the full compliance with the hours necessary if you meet a week from today at 2 o'clock and make your decision to recommend or not recommend the candidates that are before you, including Mr. Smith, who will be here, I presume, next Thursday.
Yeah.
So then I'll know where
Susan, you
the-
put it on our agenda
where
for
the
next
where the
week?
sewer commission stands.
Okay. I don't have anything further. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I move that we adjourn.
Second?
Thank you.
Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Done.